Lydia woke up before the sun. Her eyes were heavy, her body tired, but she had no choice. Every morning was the same. She had to go out and hug plantain, just like her stepmother always ordered. "Go and bring back enough today," Grace would call after her, her voice sharp. Carrying the basket on her head, Lydia walked the dusty roads of the village. Each step was heavy, but she didn't complain. She had learned long ago that complaining only made her life harder. People would pass, smiling and greeting her, but Lydia didn't look up. She had chores waiting at home, chores that never ended. When she returned from hawking, her hands dusty and sore, she faced another set of demands. Sweep the yard. Scrub the floors. Wash the dishes. And all the while, her younger sisters, Naomi and Rose, laughed and played, calling her lazy whenever she stumbled or tired. Grace never helped. She only backed orders. Do it properly, or go hungry. Some days, Lydia would go to bed with her stomach aching from hunger. Grace never gave her food until the chores were done, and even then, there was rarely enough. But Lydia didn't complain. She swallowed the pain, tucked it inside her heart, and kept going. Please do well to subscribe and tell us where you are watching from in the comment section. Her father, Samuel, had his own problems. Debts piled up. Money was always missing, and Grace never stopped demanding more. Money for her dresses, money for Naomi and Rose's schooling, money for luxuries Lydia would never have. And somehow, it always became Samuel's responsibility. The debts grew, and Lydia's father didn't know how to pay. One evening, when Lydia returned from the market, carrying the last of the plantain, her father sat with a worried look. His face was pale, lines deep across his forehead. "Lydia," he said, his voice low, I don't know what to do. The debts. I cannot pay." Lydia wiped her hands on her apron. "Father, I don't know either," she whispered. Her heart ached for him, even though he had never cared for her the way he cared for Grace's daughters. It was then that a solution, strange and sudden, came from an unlikely place. An elderly man in the village had been taking care of a young man who had been in a terrible accident. The young man had lost his memory. He didn't remember his past, his home, or even who he was. He had become crippled, unable to walk properly. The elderly man had cared for him as best as he could, but money ran out. Hospitals were expensive. Desperate, the elderly man approached Lydia's father. "Samuel," he said, "I need help. If you cannot give me money, at least let the young man marry one of your daughters. Then he will have someone to care for him." Samuel's heart froze. His mind raced. He had no money to pay the debts. He had daughters, and the oldest one, Lydia, was the least favored. She was quiet, humble, unnoticed. Maybe she could do this. That night, Samuel called Lydia into his room. "There is a young man, who needs a wife," he said slowly, his voice trembling. He is crippled, and he cannot walk, but he needs someone to care for him. You will marry him." Lydia's eyes widened. "Father, I cannot," she stammered. "I don't even know him. I cannot marry someone just because of debts." "Do not argue," Samuel snapped. "It is the only way. You will do this, or leave this house and never return. Do you understand?" Lydia's heart sank. She wanted to cry, to run, to hide, but she had no place to go. The debts, the stepmother, the younger sisters, the cruel life she had always known, it had cornered her. And now, this. Lydia did not sleep that night. She sat on the cold floor of her small room, hugging her knees, listening to the quiet breaths of Naomi and Rose as they slept peacefully beside her. She wondered how life could be so unfair, how some people were born to be loved and others born to endure. Her hands shook as she wiped her tears. God, why me? She whispered into the dark. Life have been unfair to her since the death of her mother. But even the darkness did not answer. By morning, the decision had already been made for her. Grace was humming loudly in the kitchen, happier than she had been in months. At least one useless girl in this house will finally bring something good, she muttered, not bothering to hide her satisfaction. Naomi and Rose giggled behind Lydia's back, whispering things they knew she could hear. Lydia felt her chest tighten, but she kept her face calm. She was used to this. Pain had become part of her. The elderly man returned later that day. His clothes were old, but he wore them with quiet dignity. His eyes were soft, almost apologetic, as he approached Lydia. "My child," he said gently, "I am sorry this has to be your path. But the boy, he has no one. He wakes in fear every night, calling for people who never come. He cannot walk well. He cannot remember his own name. Please, don't see him as a burden. He is human. He is suffering." Lydia lowered her eyes. "I have no choice," she whispered. And so, a day was chosen. A simple marriage. No drums. No singing. No wrappers spread for villagers to dance on. Just a quiet gathering, with Grace watching proudly, and somehow avoiding Lydia's eyes because guilt was burning inside him. When the elderly man led Lydia into his small compound, she felt her hands shaking again. "Sit," he said softly. "Let me bring him." Lydia sat on a small wooden bench, her heart beating loudly in her ears. She heard slow, uneven footsteps, a dragging sound, like someone pulling weight across the floor. Then she saw him. The young man. He was sitting on a low stool, his legs thin and stiff, one bent awkwardly. His face carried bruises from old injuries. His eyes were the saddest she had ever seen. Empty, confused, lost. When he lifted his head to look at her, Lydia felt something shift inside her. Not fear. Not disgust. Something else. Something like pity mixed with softness. Who are you?" he asked quietly, his voice shaky. They say you are my wife. Is that true?" His eyes blinked rapidly, as if the words hurt him. Lydia swallowed. "Yes," she said softly. "They say I am." He nodded slowly, like a man accepting a fate he didn't understand. Then he whispered the words that broke her heart completely. "I'm sorry you were given to someone like me." Lydia felt tears sting her eyes, but she forced them back. This was her life now. A crippled husband she didn't know. A marriage she didn't choose. A future wrapped in darkness. But somewhere deep inside her, a small voice whispered, "Maybe this is not the end. Maybe this is the beginning of something you do not see yet." Lydia woke up early the next morning, before the cock even crowed. The compound was quiet, and the cold morning breeze brushed against her skin. For a moment, she forgot where she was. But then she heard the soft cough of the old man and the gentle scraping sound of Chidi trying to adjust his weak legs on the stool. Reality settled again. This was her home now. She stood up from the mat they gave her and folded it neatly. She didn't want to cause any trouble. She didn't want to be seen as lazy. She didn't want to hear the sharp words she had grown used to from her stepmother. When she stepped outside, she saw the old man already sweeping the compound with slow, tired strokes. "Good morning, Papa," Lydia greeted softly. The old man froze a little. It had been long since anyone called him that with respect. "Good morning, my daughter," he replied, his voice warm. "You woke early." "I'm used to it," Lydia said simply. Chidi was sitting near the shoemaking shed. His legs were wrapped in cloth, and he was trying to bend forward to pick up a piece of leather. But his hand kept shaking, and the leather fell from his grip again and again. Without thinking, Lydia walked toward him. "Let me help you," she said. Chidi looked up slowly. His eyes were soft, almost shy. "I'm sorry you have to see me like this every day," he whispered. Lydia knelt beside him. "Chidi, don't say that. I am also used to pain." Their eyes met. For the first time, she saw something in his eyes. Not helplessness. Not pity. Not shame. But gratitude. He was grateful she didn't pull away from him. The old man cleared his throat softly. "Lydia, if you want, you can join us in the shed today. You don't have to make shoes, but you can help with small things. It will help you settle in." Lydia nodded. Inside the shed, she watched how they walked. The old man cut leather carefully. Chidi stitched the pieces together slowly, his hands firm but his legs shaking when pain hit them. There was a small fire stove at the corner to soften hard rubber. Everything was old but organized. "Can I try something?" Lydia asked timidly. The old man smiled. "Of course. Every hand that helps is a blessing." They gave her a small piece of cloth and taught her how to polish the finished shoes. Lydia worked carefully, her hands gentle and steady. It wasn't hard. In fact, it felt peaceful, nothing like the stress and shouting she had left behind at her father's house. Hours passed like minutes. At one point, Chidi dropped his needle by mistake. It rolled far from him. He froze, frustration building in his face. He hated needing help. Lydia didn't wait. She bent down, picked the needle, and placed it back in his hand. His fingers brushed hers again. This time, he didn't flinch. "Thank you," he murmured. "You're welcome." There was a silence, soft, comfortable. Then Chidi spoke, his voice low. "Lydia, can I ask something?" "Yes." Are you angry that you married me?" Lydia inhaled deeply, looking at her hands. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to scream about the pain, the force, the unfairness. But instead she said the truth in her heart. "I don't know yet, Chidi. But I am not angry with you. You didn't do anything wrong." Chidi's eyes softened, and he looked down at his crippled legs. "I wish I could walk. I wish I could be a man that makes you proud." Lydia shook her head. "No. Just be kind. That is enough for me." And for the first time since the accident, a real smile slowly appeared on Chidi's lips. It was small. Shy. But it was real. Later in the evening, the old man cooked simple yam and gave Lydia the biggest piece. "You worked hard today," he said. Lydia blinked. No one had ever given her the biggest portion before. At home, she always ate last. Sometimes she didn't even eat at all. "Thank you, Papa," she whispered. That night, as they all sat outside watching the moon rise, Chidi said something that made Lydia's heart pause. "Lydia, maybe God brought you here for a reason. Not as punishment, but as a blessing." She didn't answer. But she felt something warm inside her. A feeling she had never known. Maybe, just maybe. This crippled young man and this poor shoemaking shed were not the prison she imagined. Maybe they were the beginning of a new life. Far better than the one she left behind. The days passed, and soon, talk of the village festival filled the air. It was in 3 months' time, but to them it like tomorrow because it was the biggest celebration of the year. Women cooked large pots of jollof rice and pounded yam. Men gathered firewood and set up long benches. Palm wine sellers cleaned their calabashes. Drummers practiced all night. And the young ladies. Oh, that was their own excitement. Naomi and Rose, Lydia's stepsisters, were the loudest of all. From morning till night, they kept singing. "This festival will change our lives. Chief's son will come, and one of us will marry him. Imagine us leaving this village to stay in the city." Grace, their mother, was more excited than both of them together. She bought new matching clothes for her daughters, bright lace wrappers that sparkled in the sun. She took them to the best hairdresser in the village. She told everyone who passed, "My daughters will catch the chief's son today. Mark my words." They walked around proudly, twisting their waist, practicing their smiles, practicing how to greet the chief's son. But Lydia, she did not even think of the festival. She stayed in the small shoemaking shed, helping to polish shoes, sweeping the compound, cooking for the old man, and assisting Chidi whenever his hands were too weak to hold the leather. She heard the village girls laughing as they tried on beads. She heard her stepsisters running around, shouting about which lipstick was better. She heard her stepmother bragging to neighbors. But Lydia kept her head down. She had no new clothes. No hair braided. No jewelry. No hope of dancing. And even if she did, she was a married woman now. Besides, she felt safer beside Chidi, far away from the noise of people who once made her feel invisible. Lydia and Chidi woke up earlier than usual. The old man had helped them finish making plenty of shoes, beautiful hand-stitched leather sandals, men's slippers, and some simple children's shoes. They needed to sell them. The money was important. Chidi needed to go for a proper checkup, and the small work they were doing in the village could not cover the hospital bill. So the old man suggested, "Let us take these shoes to the nearest town. People there buy more. Maybe God will pity us." Lydia agreed immediately. Anything that would help Chidi stand on his legs again was worth it. The old man pushed Chidi's wheelchair while Lydia carried the big basket of shoes on her head. Their journey was slow, but they kept moving. The sun was strong, but Lydia did not complain. Chidi watched her quietly, wondering how someone who suffered so much could still be so gentle. When they reached the town junction, people gathered quickly. Shoes were displayed. Prices were called. Buyers came from left and right. Before 1 hour passed, more than half of the shoes were gone. Lydia's face lit up with a joy she had never felt before. Chidi smiled too, his heart swelling as he watched her. But something strange happened. As Chidi sat near a small kiosk, a tall man who was buying slippers suddenly froze. His eyes widened. The slippers slipped from his hand. He stared at Chidi again, harder, like he was seeing a ghost. Is this not?" the man whispered, shaking. "Is this not Tidi?" Before Chidi could speak, the man shouted loudly, Come! Come! I found him! Tidi is alive. Please subscribe so you don't miss the part 2.